We tell ourselves stories about heroes. We need them to be unbreakable, incorruptible, the lighthouse in the storm that never goes out. But what happens when that light flickers? Today we tell a story of when heroes become the very thing they swore to destroy. The fallen famous hero to villain turns. Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. Wanda Maximoff lost everything. Her brother, her lover, her children that existed only in her grief-stricken mind. So she did what any broken person would do. She built a lie. Westview wasn't just mind control. It was a mother's desperate attempt to hold onto something that was never real. An entire town imprisoned in her fantasy because the alternative, accepting loss, was unbearable. She turned neighbors into actors, children into props, all to sustain the illusion that her family was intact. Every morning, the people of Westview woke up not as themselves, but as characters in Wanda's sitcom dream. But Westview was just the beginning. The Darkhold whispered promises of reunion, of rewriting reality itself, and Wanda listened. She became the Scarlet Witch not through ambition, but through love turned toxic, through grief that consumed everything in its path. The book showed her countless universes where her children lived, where she was happy, where loss hadn't hollowed her out completely. When she finally decided to claim what she believed was rightfully hers, no cost was too great. She murdered the masters of the mystic arts. She puppeteered her alternate self to live vicariously through another mother's joy. She was prepared to kill children, other people's children, to reclaim her own. She didn't want to be a villain. She just wanted her children back. And that made her more dangerous than any conqueror. Evil born from love is the most insidious kind, because it never feels evil to the person committing it. Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader. Fear. That's what broke Anakin Skywalker. Fear of loss. So consuming that it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. He saw Padme dying in his dreams. He felt the same helplessness he experienced when his mother was tortured and killed by Tusken Raiders. The Jedi preached acceptance, detachment, letting go of what you cannot control. But Anakin couldn't accept losing another person he loved. His fall wasn't sudden. It was years in the making. The Jedi Council's distrust, the Chancellor's manipulation, the weight of being the chosen one while still feeling like a confused, frightened boy. Every small compromise, his secret marriage, his anger at the Tusken Raiders, his willingness to spy on Palpatine, carved away pieces of the hero he was meant to be. The moment he ignited his lightsaber in the Jedi Temple, surrounded by younglings who looked up to him with trust and terror, Anakin Skywalker died. What stood in that hallway was already Darth Vader, a man who would destroy everything to save what he loved, only to lose it all in the process. The children who called him Master Skywalker became his first victims as a Sith. Their innocence meant nothing against his desperate need to gain the power to cheat death. He became the very darkness he fought against, and 20 years later, he would watch his son nearly make the same choice. The tragedy of Anakin Skywalker is that his greatest fear came true precisely because he was so afraid of it happening. OMMAN, the False Protector. For years, Nolan Grayson was Earth's greatest protector, a symbol of hope, strength, and moral clarity. He saved lives, stopped disasters, raised a son who idolized him. He gave interviews, posed for photos, attended charity events. He was everything humanity wanted in a superhero. It was all a lie. The moment he held those civilians in front of a speeding train, using their bodies as weapons against his own son, every heroic act became retroactively tainted. Had he ever truly cared about the people he saved? Or was Earth always just a practice ground for a greater conquest? Every smile, every rescue, every moment of seeming compassion was revealed as performance art for an invasion that had been planned for decades. What 17 more years? He asked his broken son, as if their entire relationship, everything Mark believed about his father, was just time to kill before the real work began. 17 years of bedtime stories, flying lessons, father-son talks about responsibility and power. All of it hollow preparation for the day when Mark would either join the Viltrumite Empire or die resisting it. Omni-Man didn't fall from grace. He revealed that grace was always an illusion. The most chilling aspect of his betrayal isn't the violence, it's the calculation. He loved his son, in his way, but that love was always secondary to his loyalty to Viltrum. Every moment of apparent heroism was just him playing a role, waiting for orders that would finally let him drop the mask. The worst part of it all was he was genuinely trying to spare Mark pain by making him understand that human life was insignificant. In his mind, Accepting the Viltrumite way was mercy, compared to the alternative of watching everyone Mark loved die slowly over mere decades. Homelander, the manufactured monster. Homelander was never really a hero. He was a product, created, marketed, and sold as America's golden boy. But beneath the costume was a hollow man, desperate for love, yet incapable of genuine connection. Raised in a laboratory, studied like a specimen, he learned early that love was conditional, performance-based, something to be earned through demonstrations of power. His descent isn't a fall, it's a slow reveal. Each public breakdown, each moment of barely contained rage peels away another layer of the facade. He doesn't want to protect people, he wants them to worship him. And when worship isn't enough, fear will suffice. The crowd's adoration after he murders a protester in broad daylight doesn't horrify him, it liberates him. Finally, he can stop pretending to care about their welfare and start demanding their devotion. The most terrifying thing about Homelander isn't his power. It's how long the world pretended he was a hero while he was always a monster in costume. Vought International built him to be controllable, marketable, profitable. They never built him to be good. His entire moral framework is borrowed from focus groups and marketing campaigns. Every interaction is transactional to him. Save a cat from a tree, receive praise. Save a plane full of people, receive worship. Kill someone who disrespects him, receive fear, which he discovers feels remarkably similar to respect. He cannot differentiate between genuine love and terrified submission because he's never experienced the former. The tragedy of Homelander is that he's simultaneously the most powerful being on Earth and the most emotionally stunted. He has the physical capabilities of a god and the emotional maturity of a neglected child. That combination doesn't create a hero. It creates a capricious deity who might save you or kill you based entirely on how you make him feel about himself. Slow burn villains, the good guys who wrote Injustice, Superman, the tyrant of tomorrow. In another world, Superman lost everything in a single day. Lois Lane, his unborn child. Metropolis. All because the Joker wanted to prove that anyone could be broken. The Joker's plan was elegant in its cruelty. Drug Superman with a combination of kryptonite and Scarecrow's fear toxin, making him see Lois as doomsday. In his drug state, Superman carried what he thought was his greatest enemy into space, only to realize too late that he had killed the woman he loved and their unborn child. The heartbreak triggered a nuclear device that obliterated millions. Superman's response was swift and final. He punched a hole through the Joker's chest. But killing the Joker was just the beginning. Every line Superman crossed made the next one easier. He established a world government with himself as supreme leader. He imprisoned heroes who opposed him, first in regular prisons, then in the Phantom Zone. He killed those who wouldn't submit, starting with other versions of himself from parallel Earths who dared to suggest his methods were wrong. He told himself it was for peace, for order, for a world where no one would ever lose what he lost. But peace through fear isn't peace. It's oppression with a cape. Batman became his greatest enemy not because Bruce Wayne was evil, but because Bruce Wayne remembered who Clark Kent used to be. That memory, that witness to his former goodness, became unbearable. So Superman broke Batman's back, dissolved the Bat family, and finally killed the one man who might have pulled him back from the brink. The Sentry, the hero who is his own villain. Robert Reynolds is simultaneously one of Marvel's greatest heroes and most dangerous villains. The Sentry possesses the power of a million exploding suns, but with that power comes the Void, his dark alter ego, pure malevolence given form. This isn't a split personality disorder or possession by an external entity. The Void is literally the shadow cast by Sentry's light, the necessary counterbalance to his overwhelming goodness. Every time the Sentry saves the world, the Void emerges to balance the scales. Every life saved demands a life taken. Every moment of hope breeds an equal measure of despair. The cosmic force that granted Robert his powers didn't just make him a hero, it made him a living embodiment of moral equilibrium. He cannot exist without his opposite. The tragedy of the Sentry isn't that he became evil, it's that he's locked in an eternal struggle with his own darkness, and that darkness always wins in the end. He doesn't just fight villains, he is the villain, forever battling himself in a war that has no victory condition. Every act of heroism is eventually undone by an equal act of villainy. Every person he saves is balanced by someone the Void destroyed. Dangerous Targ, Martians Do Not Kill, has shown many dubs how to elevate horror chasing the movie at Stereo Hum. Daenerys Stormborn spent her entire journey breaking chains. She freed slaves in Slaver's Bay, executing masters who had profited from human misery. She toppled tyrants across Essos, building a following through mercy toward the oppressed and ruthless justice toward oppressors. She was the breaker of chains, the mother of dragons, the rightful queen who would rule through love rather than fear. But power without restraint corrupts even the most noble intentions, and Daenerys had been accumulating power, political, military, and supernatural, since she was barely more than a child. Dragons don't distinguish between guilty and innocent when they sack cities. Absolute power requires absolute decisions, and absolute decisions rarely account for nuance. Her descent accelerated after reaching Westeros. In Essos, she had been liberator, revolutionary, the foreign queen who represented hope for the downtrodden. In Westeros, she was an invader, backed by foreign armies and monsters that hadn't been seen for generations. The people she intended to rule viewed her with suspicion rather than gratitude. Her claim to the throne, while legally valid, felt hollow to subjects who had never known her rule. When she heard those bells, the bells of King's Landing surrendering, something inside her snapped. Every betrayal, every loss, every moment of isolation crashed down at once. Jon's rejection of her romantic advances, rooted in newly discovered familial ties. Jorah's death, protecting her in a battle she had orchestrated. Missandei's execution by enemies, who saw her only as leverage against the Dragon Queen. In that moment, mercy felt like weakness. Justice felt insufficient. Only fire could cleanse the world of those who had wronged her, who had rejected her gifts, who had chosen to fear rather than love her. The people in King's Landing weren't individuals with families, dreams, and fears. They were symbols of a world that had consistently chosen others over her. The woman who spent years saving innocents burned a city full of them, and the liberator became the destroyer. Why heroes fall? The fall of a hero isn't random. It follows patterns, psychological fractures that appear long before the final break. Loss is often the catalyst. When heroes lose someone they're supposed to protect, the guilt becomes unbearable. Wanda lost her children, first her brother Pietro, then Vision, then the children who existed only in her fractured psyche. Superman lost Lois and their unborn child. Anakin lost his mother to torture and murder, then feared losing Padme the same way. Loss makes heroes question everything, their methods, their restraint, their very identity. If their power couldn't protect the people who mattered most, what good was playing by rules that constrained that power? Pride is also a major factor. Heroes begin believing only they know what's right. They've saved the world before, surely they can do it again, but better this time? More permanently? More efficiently? Homelander believes he's superior to humanity not just physically, but morally and intellectually. Daenerys believed she alone could judge who deserved freedom and who deserved fire. This isn't mere arrogance, it's the logical conclusion of being repeatedly proven right about existential threats, while others remain skeptical or paralyzed by indecision. Fear's perhaps the most potent factor that accelerates the descent. When you can level mountains and stop time, moral constraints feel arbitrary. Why negotiate with terrorists when you can simply eliminate them? Why accept systemic injustice when you can rewrite the system overnight? The more power a hero wields, the more the normal mechanisms of social control, law, consensus, compromise, seem like obstacles rather than safeguards. Not fear and isolation, which drives the worst decisions. Fear of failure. Fear of loss. Fear of being wrong. Heroes who fear losing control often overcorrect, becoming the very tyrants they once fought. They justify terrible acts as necessary evils, never recognizing that necessity is often just fear in disguise. Anakin's fear of losing Padme drove him to embrace the dark side. Superman's fear of experiencing another metropolis drove him to eliminate any possibility of similar attacks through global domination. Isolation completes the transformation. As heroes cross lines, they alienate allies, friends, loved ones. Soon they're surrounded only by enemies and sycophants. No one left to tell them they're wrong. No one left who remembers who they used to be. The people who might have pulled them back from the brink are either dead, imprisoned, or too afraid to speak truth to power. In their own minds, fallen heroes never stop being heroes. They just redefine what heroism means. They're still protecting people. They're still fighting for justice. Their version of it anyways. Purified of the compromises and contradictions that make real justice so difficult to achieve. Most times, we want to believe our heroes are unbreakable. That goodness, once pure, stays pure forever. But history, real and fictional, tells us otherwise. They were meant to save the world, but now the world needs saving from from them. The symbols of hope became symbols of fear. The protectors became the very threats they once fought. In the end, the road to hell isn't just paved with good intentions. It's paved with heroes who thought they knew a better way. Hey, if you enjoyed diving into this topic with me, do me a solid and subscribe, then hit that like button. It seriously helps the channel out more than you'd think. Plus, it lets me know you're into this kind of content so I can keep making more videos you'll actually want to watch. It takes literally 1 second and it makes a huge difference. Thanks.